Now I would request our ICA chairman, Dr. Nazir Gilani, for the opening speech. Please come to the mic, Mr. Nazir Gilani.
Thank you, Mumtaz Khan sir. Honorable Chief Guest, former Chief Minister of the State of Jammu and Kashmir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to ICA's third two-day international conference on national reconciliation. The first ICA Intra-Kashmir conference was held at Commonwealth Institute in London in May 2004. The second Kashmir Peace Conference was held in Toronto in November 2004. Ladies and gentlemen, the London conference was chaired by former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Benazir Bhutto, and former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Indian administered Dr. Farooq Abdullah. The Toronto conference was chaired by Derek Lee, Member of Canadian Parliament, and Umar Abdullah, President of National Conference and former Union Minister, Government of India. Honored guests, we remain fully mindful of your effort and of your kindness to commit time for a two-day debate on the rights movement of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Embedded in the debate are 5 variables for your kind consideration. We remain fully confident and sincerely look forward to your wisdom and valuable contributions on various variables identified in the program. Mr. Chairman, today and tomorrow you have been invited by one of the three parties, that is the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Who is this party? We represent a rights movement which is 120 years old. We represent a suffering which is 157 years old. The first reference to our suffering is documented in para 2 of the letter dated 7th of January 1848, written by Sir Henry Harding, Secretary to the Government of India to Maharaja Gulab Singh. We represent a title to self-determination of a people. This, however, does not complete the circle of wisdom on Kashmir. The other two parties are India and Pakistan. They represent their respective national interests as claims for the last 58 years. India and Pakistan are legally sovereign since 1947, whereas the people of Jammu and Kashmir are legally sovereign since 20th of April 1927. So, a solution on the basis of one size fits all is not possible. You have to reconcile, Mr. Chairman, a Kashmiri rights movement with the two rival claims of India and Pakistan. How you position your wisdom, we leave it to your duty to fairness. While you reconcile the three interests, that is, Indian, Pakistani and Kashmiri, ICA urges you to examine the inequities and the injustices faced by the people of Kashmir. Ladies and gentlemen, as a sovereign and one people, I say as a sovereign and one people, we negotiated a standstill agreement with the government of Pakistan on 15th of August 1947. It failed. As a sovereign and one people, we negotiated another bilateral agreement with the Government of India on 26th of October 1947, and it subsists. Under this bilateral agreement, the Government of India has undertaken to protect life, property and dignity of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. This obligation extends to Azad Kashmir and to northern areas as well. Mr. Chairman, I would ask you to examine the fact to what extent has the Government of India honored and lived up to these three stipulations. And what is the redress if India has failed in protecting life, property and dignity in Jammu and Kashmir, in particular in the area under its direct administration? And what is the redress available if India has failed in its obligation to seek similar protection of the people living under the Pakistani controlled part of Jammu and Kashmir and in northern areas? Ladies and gentlemen, the Government of India is defending its bilateral agreement of 26th of October 1947, reached with the Government of Jammu and Kashmir. The people of Kashmir regard it as a provisional and conditional agreement. Pakistan, on its part, accepts it in her bilateral agreements with India, and for domestic needs calls it fraudulent in public. Mr. Chairman, at this point in time, the people of Jammu and Kashmir have no such bilateral agreement with Pakistan. Any future relationship with Pakistan is set out under Article 257 of the Constitution of Pakistan. The constitutional wisdom of Article 257 stipulates a voluntary and not a compulsory relationship. As a provisional measure of administering Azad Kashmir on its side of LOC, Pakistan seeks a reliance on its responsibilities under UNSIP resolutions. But why does the Government of Pakistan double step and violate the UNSIP responsibilities in respect of the people of Gilgit and Baltistan? It has breached the substance of its main claim in Azad Kashmir and has sought an unpopular control of Gilgit and Baltistan through an agreement called Karachi Agreement of April 1949. Mr. Chairman, the jurisprudence, content and nature of these two controls is at variance to each other. Ladies and gentlemen, India and Pakistan may see it convenient and to their advantage as well to rush us and everybody else through an ill-considered peace process. We are pro-peace. We are not at war with India or with Pakistan. At the same time, ladies and gentlemen, we do not want to continue to add more years to our suffering. We do not want to reconcile with the present division under three administrations on either side of line of control. We do not want to remain subjects of five administrations, three Kashmiri administrations, one Indian and one Pakistani, four constitutions and one agreement. Mr. Chairman, we do not want that India and Pakistan appoint and shortlist our leaders. We do not want to act as reflexes of their national interests and betray our own people. We do not want that we fight India to increment the interests of Pakistan or to become instruments of violence against our own people. We want peace with a quality of life and of course not a state of life. Ladies and gentlemen, it's encouraging to note that India and Pakistan, as two member nations of the United Nations, have a charter obligation to promote peace and security. War under international law is forbidden, and we saw how international community reversed the role of war in Kuwait and in Bosnia. Mr. Chairman, India and Pakistan are not fighting any war. Unfortunately, the low intensity and cheap war is handed over to the people of Kashmir. We have not only taken upon to fight Indian Army in Kashmir, but we have also taken upon to kill each other. Mr. Chairman, from 1877 to 1931, the rights movement in Jammu and Kashmir cost us only 23 lives. And a few more from 1931 to 1987. We, as a consequence, achieved state for the people of state, a responsible government, a constitution, and many more concessions. How come that at a time when India and Pakistan, as two sovereign states, are holding out their respective claims on Kashmir and are bound by bilateral agreements and international law to protect life, dignity and property, the people of Kashmir have lost a generation in just 15 years. There is no end to death and destruction in Kashmir. Since we have lost a generation and suffer a daily loss of life on the streets of Kashmir, we may be looking for a mens rea to apportion culpability in respect of loss of life, loss of dignity, loss of property in the last 15 years. Mr. Chairman, some sections in the governments of India and Pakistan and some Kashmiri leaders in all the three administrations and many more abroad may be pointed out for a shared criminal culpability. We support the instrument of dialogue and a freely expressed culture of politics. We oppose use of violence, commercialized, privatized, undemocratic, unaccountable political culture in any part of Kashmir. India and Pakistan have started talking to a section of Kashmiri leadership. This leadership traveled to Islamabad and now has refreshed our contact with Delhi government. We are not yet sure in regards to the agenda that Kashmiri leadership wants to execute or discuss with India and Pakistan. Mr. Chairman, it is the second most important visit by Kashmiri leadership after the first most important visit of Sheikh Abdullah on 23rd of May 1964. A contrast between the two wisdoms reveals that the great Sheikh was more overwhelming, more confident and had a clear agenda in 1964 than the 9 leaders seem to have 41 years later in 2005. In May 1964, after consultations with Acharya Vinobhave, Jayaprakash Narayan and Raj Gopalacharya, Sheikh introduced the novel idea of a confederation of India, Pakistan and Kashmir. On 23rd of May 1964, the Sheikh went to Pakistan to sell his three-nation wisdom. But Ayub Khan was not in a mood to purchase this Kashmiri wisdom. On 26th of May, however, the Sheikh did announce that there would be a Nehru-Ayub summit. The power of a single Kashmiri leader was writ large throughout Pakistan. On 27th of May 1964, ladies and gentlemen, Nehru died. The Congress began to backtrack, leaving the Sheikh furious. On 15th of January 1965, the Sheikh said, I would urge your attention to this sentence. The Sheikh said in a public speech that the peaceful agitation might not remain peaceful forever. He went to Hajj on a trip with political ramifications, meeting Chu Enlai, and returned to India in May to find re-arrest awaiting him. So this was to bracket together the two wisdoms in history. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are not one and a sovereign people as we were on 15th of August 1947 or on 26th of October 1947. Our politics is caught in ghettos of various divides. There is nothing wrong, I stress, there is nothing wrong in taking a pro-India or a pro-Pakistan position. It is all wrong if either of the two positions is converted into an instrument of war against the rights movement of the people. It's important that the three shades of political thought remain accountable, culpable, and in the discharge of their public trust. We have invited you, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the people who are silenced, who are oppressed and distributed under 5 controls, to help us in the future peace process, in the future dialogue between India and Pakistan. For what? To assure the full consideration of Indian pledge to protect life, dignity and property, and to assure us of the Pakistani claim that it is in Azad Kashmir to discharge its duties under UNCIP resolutions and that it respects the Karachi Agreement and the court decisions in regards to Gilgit and Baltistan. ICA urges you all to guide the people of Jammu and Kashmir in regards to their position that they need to take in defending their rights movement for a plural society against the respective claims of India and Pakistan. Mr. Chairman, ICA looks forward to your advice and support to assure that India and Pakistan respect the full regime of human rights of the people of Kashmir living under their administrative controls, and that the natural resources of Kashmir are treated in accordance with the international law on the subject. ICA wishes to thank the civil society and the civil society institutions of India and Pakistan in Europe, Middle East, USA, Africa and other parts of the world who sympathize with our difficulties and support us as a people with a title to self-determination, and at the same time who appreciate Indian and Pakistani position as claimants. I once again thank you, ladies and gentlemen.